Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at BTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the economic situation of the country, and we're going to be talking about the ways and measures in which the government has been trying to improve the economy and a number of indicators that have shown a positive trajectory. And that, of course, includes the inflation rate, which, of course, is growing better. We have seen a concept with reference to what happens in terms of the measures that the government has taken and the steps that is taken to reduce the effect of inflation, with, of course, the rate of inflation going down. While this, of course, does not mean that prices are going lower, it still helps with the way that the economy is going forward. At the same time, we've seen that the State Bank has reduced the policy rate last month by 100 basis points down to 12%. And this is, of course, something that has happened since last year in June and is the sixth reduction. And that, of course, also points towards a positive trajectory. However, there are many other measures and steps that the government still needs to take and engage in, particularly, of course, budgetary cuts and moving forward with larger projects such as Recodec and Gavadir. And then, of course, with reference to what it is that the government plans to do with reference to decisions taken in line with the IMF's conditions, and, of course, moving forward, a positive way in terms of the political engagement towards economic recovery as well. So we're going to be taking a look at the larger context in which these numbers actually play out and what that means for both Pakistan and then, of course, in the ways in which we're going to respond to the larger global economy as well. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we've been joined online by our guest, Dr. Salman, who's the Executive Director, Prime, and Dr. Aima, who's a senior economist. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ma'am, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today. Dr. Ali, I'm going to start with you with reference to where we stand today. We're, of course, a month in the new year, and we've, of course, been dealing with a lot of measures and changes that the government has been taken since the start of the fiscal year. And we've seen that, of course, includes policy rate cuts by the State Bank and, of course, the rate at which the inflation is going down. How do you see these numbers in context with what the government has been trying to do and the efforts it's making in this regard?
Well, Sana, I think these are all positive measures and indicators of an economy which is going towards stabilization. I think there are three important steps which government has been able to, accomplish. First of all, the exchange rate stabilization was a key part of the overall policy measures which government started implementing last year, in which the government has been fairly successful since we are an import dependent economy like most of the economies of the world. So therefore, exchange rate stability helps in maintaining the domestic inflation rate. Secondly, because we are in IMF program, I think the demand management through the tighter monetary policy in last 1 year has helped. And although the business community has been demanding a much aggressive rate cut, I think the State Bank has rightly resisted this demand, and keeping in view the long-term inflation forecast, it has gradually slowed down, brought the interest rate down. And thirdly, as we learned today, the inflation rate is now at the lowest at 2.4 in last 9 years. This is certainly a good news, although when we go out in the street, of course, we know that it doesn't mean that prices are coming down, but at least I think it is still a positive sign that 1 year ago this rate was about 40%, and now this is down to 3%. Certainly, this is good news for consumers, good news for buyers, for businesses at large. It on the other hand, it may also mean if it keeps on declining further, this is also happening because of lack of economic activity, and there is a risk, sometimes we call it deflation, that we may also enter there. That is that if economic growth doesn't pick up as has been the forecast by IMF, by the World Bank, the economic growth forecasts are pretty low at the moment. Therefore, we should be treating this also low inflation news as with a sort of cautionary note. Going forward, I think what I see importantly, that government has released a detailed economic transformation roadmap, which is called the Prime Minister Economic Transformation Agenda. After reviewing that plan, I'm hopeful that for the first time, a government document has acknowledged all the long-term problems which Pakistan's economy has been facing, and acknowledged the critical importance of structural reforms, of economic reforms, and changing the structure of the government, reducing the size of the government, changing the structure of tariff and trade policy, energy tariffs. So all the right intent is there going forward, and all the right language is there in going forward. Um, and I hope that we see more towards implementation in next a few months, which is quite critical for economic growth for the future.
Right, Dr. Ali, I'm glad you mentioned this initiative by the Prime Minister, and I want your take in terms of how, whether or not, whenever we talk about any such plans and directions moving forward, there is, of course, the issue of implementation. There's also the issue of an actual roadmap, a framework, or the steps to reach that particular direction. Did you find that in this plan?
Yes, I think one good thing in this plan is that not just the diagnosis, but also detailed implementation with respect to various ministries, various sectors has been already identified. Like in next 3 years, what needs to be done, which ministry, need to take which measure has been quite clearly included. This is, of course, had been going on for some time, but this single document actually brings various initiatives all together. And now we can see at one place a roadmap and an implementation. And in fact, this document is called an implementation plan itself. So I think that is important. And the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is known as a personality who is a doer. And so therefore we hope that he sees that all the reforms mentioned in the plan are actually implemented. It is not going to be easy because there is going to be a lot of resistance to the measures which have been mentioned. I was last week I was part of a major business conference in Islamabad, and there were certain apprehensions from the business community because, for instance, there's a talk of trade liberalization in this document. There's a talk of moving away from import substitution. Good intent. There's a plan for gradual reduction in tariffs, but then there will also be resistance to the plan, both within the government and also outside the government. So I think that is the challenges which will the government will face when it implements. It's not the lack of direction, it's not the lack of clarity. I think at this time, it's how government actually navigates through various competing groups and various competing interests within the large political economy which we have.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Aima, I'd like your take on this as well, particularly in terms of the initiative taken by the PM, and then, of course, how you are seeing the numbers, particularly when we talk about the ways in which the government has taken these measures since the start of the fiscal year, and the ways in which we are engaged with the IMF also on this front.
Thank you so much for this question. So, mostly I'd second what Dr. Ali has said, but like I have a small different view on this. First of all, it's kind of disinflation, right? So there is inflation month on month. We've had a small increment, 0.1%. So there's disinflation, there's a rise in prices, but at a lower pace. So we have inflation, which is a good thing, because if it was disinflation, we would be in a very panicked state, because that would lead to a reduction in economic growth and reduction in demand. However, the thing that we really need to understand here is that this is headline inflation. So headline inflation takes into account the prices of pulses, food, energy, etc. Whereas our core inflation is still at 7.8%. So this is kind of a base effect that we are seeing in our headline inflation that's giving us a number that's really low, and it's the lowest in the last 111 months, etc., which is fine. How you will see more economic activity generated when you go to shops, when you go to markets, and you go to malls, which is a good thing, because we've had really high inflation, and we've had the highest inflation in the Southeast Asian region for years. However, this is kind of a base effect, and we need to see how it normalizes in the next 4 to 5 months, especially with Ramadan coming, and we have lots of food prices going up, etc. So we need to have a look at this, but we're still in a safer place comparatively because this is disinflation, not deflation, where consumers wouldn't have purchasing power and they wouldn't be able to buy, and then leading on to suppression in demand and then suppression in growth. So that's a good and a safe place. However, we also need to understand that right now we're in an extended fund facility. We have a very stable reserve, which is reserve level, which is around 13 billion US dollars. Much of it is like borrowed. Then we have some commercial borrowing. We have the money coming in from IMF, which is a good thing when we've stabilized our exchange rate. And now is the time to tap in to the opportunity to attract FDIs in Pakistan. Our policy rate has gone down steadily, which is an amazing thing. We were really high in policy rate till last May 2024, and that was kind of hindering economic growth in the country. So we brought that down. So this is a starting point. You can call it a starting point or initiation of economic growth. So we are in a very good position. Considering it's Pakistan, considering we have such a huge amount of external debt, considering the amount of times you've gone to IMF, I think right now is the greatest opportunity for the government, for the people in charge to tap into this opportunity because we have a stable. Doesn't matter where our reserves are coming from, but we do have a very stable $13 billion of reserves, which is giving us a very strong opportunity to show that our exchange rate is stable. And now we need to tap in to get some FDIs into the country and build up our own organic natural reserve level. Okay, and then with this inflation coming down, have we tried to see if this is demand pull or demand push? So the demand has gone down. If you look at the demand numbers in our economy, they have gone down month on month because people do not have the purchasing power, and that's not a very healthy sign for any economy, because if people don't have the demand and they don't have the purchasing power and they can't afford to buy, then businesses slow down because we don't export. We are not very efficient in exporting anything, and we don't qualify as such to export because we have energy crisis, and that's a different topic in itself. So we need to ensure that we have a steady demand and then businesses keep running. Sure, there's a class that can afford, but what about the major chunk of people? And poverty is increasing in Pakistan. So the best way forward is to tap into this opportunity, get more FDIs into the country, and then move ahead. And the second thing that Dr. Ali also mentioned is to sort out our imports and exports. Right now, officially or unofficially, we have a lot of uh, barricades on importing stuff into Pakistan, and that's keeping our balance of trade really stable. But what happens at some point? We have to liberalize it, and we need to have a free trade. Sure, we're going to have tariffs on a few things, but how much, and how much can you block that? And I think the third thing that's really important with IMF, IMF's visit later this month or beginning of March, do we have enough in our taxes? Have we been able to collect enough revenue? So agricultural tax, what the Sindh government has talked about recently, I think that's a very 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 good point, and I think we need to tax our agriculture sector because we have fallen short in our revenue collection. So in the last 12 months, government has shown a few good things. Global oil prices going down, so it has painted a very nice picture. Now we need to polish it, and this is our opportunity to polish it because global scenario, global indicators are really coming to our benefit. We need to, enhance our tax base, and we need to get in more FDIs because we need to have very efficient exports, or we need to have in something that will generate economic activity. We're talking about generating economic activity, but I don't see anything happening at that front. However, the circumstances are quite optimum for the things to happen. And and in terms of inflation, I do really think we need to look out for our core inflation, which is still at 7.8%. And this is just headline inflation, which has come down because of energy prices, oil prices, etc. So these are the kind of very sensitive things and indicators that we really need to think about.
Right, absolutely, and those are really important points. And Faisal, I'd like your take on that, particularly when we talk about efforts in the real direction, efforts in terms of the numbers that truly matter, and then of course, particularly as Dr. Aima was stressing upon, getting in more FDIs. And this has been something that has been a very important aspect of economic recovery. And we saw that the SIFC in itself was actually birthed in this regard with this particular purpose, and that in itself is a very important chapter in the overall economic recovery of the country, how it's doing, what it's focusing on, and whether or not it's adding to the ease of doing business, limiting bureaucracy and the role of any sort of hindrance. How do you look at the role that SIFC has played so far? What is the value addition that they have done, particularly in terms of FDIs, and what more can be done in relation to the government departments to make that happen?
Yeah, obviously, Sana, if we talk about, even if we talk about Udan Pakistan, the new, obviously, era of Pakistan's economy, it has, e-commerce as considered being the pivotal for the future of Pakistan. And if we take the example of SIFC, we have been seeing that the efforts which were obviously contributed by SIFC, the initiative itself, it was obviously revolutionary in terms that it was there, it was placed there to for the ease of the business. I mean, before that, we know that there were multiple windows one has to go through and get the NOCs. No sort of easy business was there, but now we know that there is a set of rules and regulations through which ease of business is being of course implemented in Pakistan. SIFC is playing a pivotal role in it. And overall, if we look at the picture, I think why I called it revolutionary, because introducing the agri-tech, agriculture, of course Pakistan is known for being a country obviously favorable for agriculture, but when it comes to right agri-tech, Pakistan lagged behind. And to me, I think it is very important that SIFC is putting up efforts to, of course, introduce and import the agri-tech to enhance the production, to enhance its agri-production, and that is going to be pivotal for the future of Pakistan, not only for our own needs, for our own grain needs, but of course we can have export with that as well. When it comes to mining, when it comes to drilling, when it comes to, as very recently we have been listening to Donald Trump as well, the very first notion he came up with after winning the elections, the winning speech he delivered, in which he said, drill baby drill. It means that we are going to improve and enhance our production when it comes to oil and gas and all. Why he said that? Because he knows that oil and gas actually plays a very important role when it comes to the delivery of the service, number one, and number two, the energy usage. It actually obviously it reduces the inflation as well if it is easily available, if it is available at the cheaper rates. So drill baby drill in Pakistan as well, and SIFC has been of course playing a very good role in it. And when it comes to mining sector, it has been looked after. So overall the picture is that we have been doing really fine, but at the same time, Sana, time and again we have highlighted that the era is gone in which we used to rely upon crops and rocks to export them and to earn some billions of dollars. This is the time of ideas. This is the time of IT. This is the time of emerging technologies. I mean, very recently we saw that one forum, DeepSeek, it can create a havoc throughout the world. It can create billions of dollars throughout the world. So this is what you call selling the idea. And Pakistan is equipped with the right brains. Pakistan is equipped with the right youth, with the right knowledge. Even, I mean, look at Dr. Aima herself, Dr. Ali, the way they have progressed. There are many more who has progressed in IT as well. We just need to give them or provide them with the adequate means, with the adequate environment, with the adequate internet, I must say.
Absolutely.
And they will do wonders.
But
and there are hurdles which need to be
my question
covered.
remains about SIFC though.
Yeah, SIFC, and we know that SIFC itself believes that along with the agriculture, along with the mining, along with the, all of the other aspects, the aspect of IT, the aspect of emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, it can never be, of course, forgotten. And that is why when I was listening to Dr. Aima, she was talking about FDIs, and this is the time that Pakistan is, of course, attracting FDIs in IT sector as well. And more we do it, more we will be, of course, in a position to enhance ourselves. One more thing which I want to reiterate once more, I have highlighted in past as well, in which I have maintained that if a country like India, with the given resources, it can improve its IT based exports, it can take it to $106 billion, then Pakistan is a country, it has always been said about Pakistan that it has the capacity to improve it and to take it to more than $50 billion. We are still sitting at around $3 billion a year of exports in the IT sector. We need to improve that. And how we need to improve that? Of course, slowly we will be able to do it. If in the first year we can target $10 billion, then we can head towards 15 and 20, and eventually we can reach to $50 billion a year. And I think when we achieve even half of the $50 billion, I'm saying $25 billion a year, if we achieve that, we will be in a brilliant position in terms of our economy.
Right. And again, my question still remains regarding the value addition of SIFC, but I'm going to throw that in your lap also, Farrukh, with reference to, of course, what we've discussed so far. I want your take on, of course, the numbers that we're seeing, the improvement that has been done by the government, and the ways in which, of course, the Prime Minister is really moving forward with this initiative. But a lot of what are core aspects of any of these initiatives that we've discussed in the past also still remain in terms of course, policy decisions, implementation, political hurdles, and then, of course, the ways in which different institutions will work together, in which, of course, SIFC is also playing an important role. And I want your take on what sort of value addition exists on that front. And then, of course, juggling that all with the IMF.
Thank you for adding so much to my plate. Good to see you, Sana.
Thank you.
And let us talk about the current numbers and the progress by the government's finance team. I think it should be lauded. They are at it, and they have been actually trying to improve the country's economic vitals quite steadily. But there is something that I have to actually caution about. I wanted to get the praise out of the way, because then I'm not going to paint a very rosy picture. And it has hardly anything to do with Pakistan right now. Pakistan is a country which is part of a system, and the system, Pakistan cannot actually live in vacuum. It cannot be independent of the global economic system. And the kind of upheavals that have already started in Donald Trump's second month, in power, and actually third week, but still, because of that, a lot is up in the air. Number one, if you look at the way they have actually started imposing tariffs, although Western media has it wrong, they keep on painting a doomsday scenario. Because of that, their markets, even right now, NASDAQ and Dow are, if I'm not wrong, they're tanking. But because the media actually keeps on creating this very doomsday scenario, the fact is these are negotiation ploys, and because of that, for short measure at least, you are going to have some kind of inflation around the world. So whatever headline inflation is in Pakistan, you cannot be very sure it is something that can be sustained. But that is not all, Sana. When Donald Trump actually said that he is going to shake up the economic system in America and in the world, he wasn't joking, right? So today, if you have seen headlines, whatever Elon Musk is doing, his Doge is doing regarding US aid, that actually tells you something can happen, something even bigger can happen. They have already defunded WHO. So where's the assurance that tomorrow they are not going to, one fine morning, they are not going to wake up and say, why are we spending so much money, giving so much money to IMF, or for that matter, the Bretton Woods system? So at this moment, we have to be very cautious. So remember that a war between Russia and Ukraine, a small, significantly small country, Ukraine, even that created so much inflation in the world. So at this moment, you can't be very sure. It is time to be prudent, and it is time to actually leapfrog. Be very sure what you're doing. On the other side, when you talk about attracting FDI, I'm sure that we are looking at international trends also. Right now, every country is encouraging investment in their own country, right? America has started with this, Make in America, then Mexico, Canada, China, even India keeps on trying, although the budget wasn't that much heartwarming, but still they are focusing on that. And at that time, when you have such a polarization in the world, do you think that very easily it will be possible to bring in FDI? I think for the next 4 or 5 months, you have to be very cautious, of course, optimistic also, but you'll have to make sure that you have control of all the major elements of economy. That is perhaps why the IMF's own country director recently spoke and cautioned again against opening up economy very quickly, because once you do, that is imports and FDI and all, Pakistan usually has this model where our imports actually dry up our foreign currency reserves immediately or very quickly. So right now, while it is good to actually plan ahead and keep on seeing that there's a possibility and you can grow, you don't know what kind of elements are being unleashed on the global stage and for how long they are going to be there. So then my concern is, while Dr. Aima and Dr. Ali were right about inflation and particularly headline inflation, the concern then is that when you look at food inflation particularly, right, and especially given that we are moving towards Ramzan, and even after that there are going to be many shocks to the system, it becomes a huge serious challenge. I hope that government of Pakistan can at least ensure that there is a food bowl that whose price is effectively controlled, one protein. Ideally it should be fish, but we haven't actually gone towards marine economy that much. Then at least the cost of poultry that is going through the sky, through the roof, that has to be controlled. Similarly vegetables, similarly pulses, similarly all the important ingredients that go into food. So if the government can actually control that, things are perhaps going to be okay in coming days, because food inflation actually really hits you badly when it comes to your purchasing power. Having said that, SIFC is important. I think it is adding value, but remember that it is a shortcut. It is a short-term measure, because at this moment what you have done is that there are so many offices on 3 floors, that is federal, provincial and local. You have the problem that if you want to, as Faisal was pointing out, if you want to open a business, you have to go to 20, 25, 30 counters, right? So what they have done is they have actually temporarily suspended this distinction between 3 floors. But that won't last very long, because eventually it is the bureaucracy of the country which has to be reformed. If it doesn't, you'll keep on having the same kind of problems, because in the end, the expenditure that is lost because of planning, the way our PSDP actually works, and the way money is either lapsed, or then they are lost because last minute they want to throw it away, because otherwise it lapses and then your budget is cut. With that kind of scenario, I think eventually you will have to pay serious attention to the hardcore reform in bureaucracy.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Ali, I'd like your take on the discussion as well, but add to that the way forward in terms of the government lowering their costs and cutting down on expenses. And this, of course, has also been a very important aspect and has been discussed with reference to the steps that the government needs to take. Most recently, this is something that came to light with the World Economic Forum and the participation by the government, the size of the delegation, the kind of money that was spent. And we've seen previous questions also being raised similarly in Pakistan's history. And I want your take on how important these kind of questions are and the way that they can actually impact the economy at the moment, and whether or not these are serious things that the government needs to think about.
Right, Sana. I think a lot has been added in the discussion. I would like to take it forward in two directions. So one is we have talked extensively about prospects of FDI and role of SIFC, and I think pertinent points have been mentioned. I would like to add three factors which are needed to make sure that we can attract more FDI. It is true that a lot of changes are happening at regional and global level, but then when these changes are happening, this also create new windows of opportunities. For instance, when last time President Trump was in power, the trade war between China and US created new opportunities for countries like Vietnam and Malaysia. And there were new production facilities which were created because of the tariff war between US and China. And so I anticipate that similar possibilities will emerge for other economies in the region, but only for those economies which are prepared to take up these opportunities. And, and the countries which will look for new production centers would at least demand three, I would like to, three, let's say, conditions or factors. First of all, security. Security to property, security to life, and a general condition of peace in the country, which I'm afraid that we may not be able to guarantee right now because of the situation in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, as has been reported on a newspaper on an almost daily basis. Second, they would like to see a stable and business-friendly tax policy. From finance minister to prime minister, everyone in Pakistan has started now saying that tax rates are too high, and this is not good for business, and that they have done it because we are in the IMF program. Now they got to change that mindset. They've got to own, first of all, the reform program. Secondly, they should overhaul the tax regime, not just the administration. The third is for the FDI is the flow of capital. Because we recently, because of the balance of payment problem, we had to stop the repatriation of profits on these multinationals. That actually provided a very negative signal to existing enterprises, existing FDI in the country. Including China, for instance, China has been a major FDI, source of major FDI for Pakistan, and their officials and ambassadors have gone on record by saying that they are worried about red tape, they are worried about the processes, about the speed, and of course about the security in Pakistan. Now, so that's my one broad point about FDI and opportunities. My second broad point going forward is that it is true that many countries have increased their internal capacity of production, especially in the area of food security. And for that, we need to increase the incentives for farmers, for our agriculture sector, broadly defined by increasing the quality of infrastructure, but by also giving them incentives of free markets. Last year, government of Punjab did the right thing by exiting from the support price mechanism. However, this year they are stopping the farmers to export their production to, by banning like interprovincial movement or export ban. Now you cannot have it two ways. Once you enter the open market in let's say in the food business, then you have to allow farmers, you have to create right incentives. So more production is important, and that is also will help us increasing the production and offsetting the import in certain commodities. Uh, Also, I think we need to heavily and urgently invest in improving the productivity of our workforce by tapping into the huge opportunity of a lack of skilled force in so many different sectors in the world. Talk about nursing, talk about IT sector, talk about other sectors in which look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia with its vision 2030 and beyond is offering huge opportunities for countries like Pakistan in construction, in hoteling, in retail, and other sectors. Are we prepared to take on these opportunities for growth? I'm afraid we are not doing the right things while we are focusing on managing the economy right now and doing certain things which are rightly needed. But then where is the growth going to come from? So we need to improve the overall situation in terms of when it comes to security of property rights, and also we need to heavily invest in the productive capacity of the economy so that we can have enough for our population, and we can have surplus production which can help in exports to other countries.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Aima, I want your take on this as well, and of course, with reference to the government steps regarding expenditure cuts, and also add to that the role of larger scale projects such as CPAC, Gavadir, and RICODIC, which are, of course, very, very important towards economic recovery as well, and how did they actually play out in this scenario?
Thank you, Sana. Thank you for putting forward this question. I'll begin by taking up the question on food security. So there was a report in quarter 3 of 2024 by the World Food Organization, and it said that Pakistan does not have enough food to feed its own population, which is around the second, third largest in the world, and we are the fifth largest in terms of population growth and having new babies in the country. So we do not qualify to be called a food secure country to perhaps be able to feed our own people. And there was a recent report where the government of Pakistan has actually accepted the fact that our agricultural land and our agricultural productivity is going down. So this, I think, is enough for us to analyze where we stand in terms of food security. So linking this to why Ukrainian war created so much of chaos around the world, because Ukraine is the second largest wheat exporter in the world, and with the war occurring, that got halted, and then there was an issue with wheat production, export prices, etc. And Pakistan got that opportunity to export wheat, and it was an urgent opportunity that the government did tap, and that was very good. However, um, are we prepared to have enough food, enough wheat crop, etc.? And the answer is very clear. There's water table problems in Pakistan, there is a salinity problem in Pakistan, there's a increase in population in Pakistan, and even the World Health Organization is they're puzzled as to these the family planning things are not working in Pakistan. So that's one issue, and we really need to look into it, because every time we have the harvesting season, there's either rain, there's either drought, there's all either buying and selling issue, etc. in Pakistan. So that's one thing that the government really, it's an urgent matter that the government really needs to look forward to in this year. The second thing Pakistan is really combating with is global warming, and the the weather changes, and these things, we either have issues with our water supply, etc. So this is one thing, and we haven't been able to secure enough money in the COP conferences, unfortunately, that we could have gotten from IMF or from COP, or the Paris allies, to get enough money to combat that. So that's the other thing that's really not in our benefit. The third thing is that I want to mention quickly is that Pakistan in itself is a very fragile economy, and this has been going on since mid 90s. And it's a very fragile economy, and The government and the advisors must understand that we need to have a very conservative view of what we are keeping or thinking of our foundation as. Because looking at CPI, fine, it's going down, but what does it actually mean, and what is causing it to come down? Has anybody pondered upon that fact? I don't see that. And the second thing that I really think the government is missing is we don't have a long-term plan. Economic policy means you have a long-term plan, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and then you break it down into smaller parts, short-term goals that you need to achieve. Unfortunately, just getting a green line train, or getting the first walking shopping street in Rawalpindi, these things, or getting SIFC, bringing everything into one window, these are just fancy words with politicians use, unfortunately, or whatever it is. It's a very short term benign policy, does not benefit the country in the long term. Also, I see, if I'm an economist, and I study the long term growth forecast, etc., etc. In Pakistan, the government, or whichever government it is, they are real masters of securing the country from disaster. So they're like very good disaster management people, all the politicians, advisors, etc. But no one looks into the long-term goals and aims of the country. Pakistan has the lowest labor productivity range in the world. It's not Asia, it's not Europe, it's in the world. So our labor productivity rate compares to North and East African countries. Do we have a lack of talent? No, we don't. What lack do we have? We have lack of opportunities where the youth can go and polish their skills. And then people who do have the opportunity to do that, they're not incentivized enough to stay in the country. Even if you're patriotic enough to be in the country, you'll face so many hurdles. The system is it's such an infiltrated system, and there's so many hurdles that people will unfortunately be pushed to leave. We have one of the highest exodus rate, mass immigration from the country. We can use our unskilled labor to produce a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunity. We can have.
Absolutely, and you're right. There's no dearth of talent, and we really need to utilize and invest in the potential that Pakistan has. Thank you, Dr. Aima, and thank you, Dr. Ali Salman, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today and sharing your views with us. Farrukh, you wanted to add something?
Right. You realize that every time we are talking about economics in this country's economy, actually we are compensating or substituting for something else. What exactly is that? We keep on talking about macro policy, we keep on talking about government's economic priorities, but in essence, what we are compensating for is failure of one sector, that is private sector. I don't know what kind of elite capture mentality they have, but they are not learning anything from the world. Earlier, Faisal was talking about AI, right? Chat GPT or whatever. Talking about IT at this moment is like, carrying coal to Newcastle, right? Because at this moment, agentic AI has been launched and it can code on your behalf. So where exactly are you going to create all these IT centers, right? In AI, nobody seems to have built even a database to my knowledge. And that becomes a problem, Sana, because somehow our elite capture is such that people actually, elbow down anybody who is new and who wants to compete with them. Because of that, right now, your economy is, private sector is totally out of its depth. We are part of no value chains. We are not part of any kind of production chains. We don't know what kind of things we need to export. In the end, whenever we get any kind of opening in any kind of Western capital or any important country, what happens is that we have the same story, same products. Either it is textile, not even apparel, then it is unvalue added commodities. And in the end, if you are talking about anything else, because we cannot eat the skin of the animals that we eat, because of that we also work in leather garments and all those things, right? But even if you look at the basic things that are the lowest hanging fruit, I earlier said seafood. remember that if it is, the sector is actually mined by people, you have many billion-dollar companies waiting to be born. Similarly, our shipping cargo lines, we don't have one company. Imagine what kind of economy we are, that we want to trade with the world, but we don't have our shipping lines, right? If you are not going to wake up, if the business community is not going to wake up, you will keep on hearing all these stories that every time there's some kind of confrontation between India and Pakistan, our businessmen come and say, oh, we should start trading with India. I don't understand the logic. India's economy is so strong, they are going to kill you. But our businessmen somehow are not actually working with the reality of the world or in this country.
Right, and this is of course something that we all need to be cognizant of, and particularly of course with the government taking the next steps. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate as always. That's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.